All right, so what we're going to be working on today is taking this website design that I've created in Adobe Illustrator and moving it into Adobe XD, where we will add some interactivity and we will create a working prototype of this website without using any HTML or any other type of code. So let me take a look at what we're going to be working with. We have the Illustrator file that I have currently open. That's where we're going to import from. I have a folder full of PNG graphics. Those are the ones that I have sitting inside of my layout. I have a document that has all my graphics before I exported them into PNGs. I may go into how to export those properly so that they're sized large enough and so that they're easy to place into your XD layout if I have time. And then the other thing I have in here is the fonts that I'm using in my layout. And I'm obviously not going to distribute these fonts because they're not mine, but if you want to make sure that what you're working on looks like what I'm working on, then go ahead and install these fonts. But if you don't do that, at least go and change the fonts to something that you do actually have on your computer so that everything looks nice and you don't get any unnecessary errors. So as we're working, you'll want to have your XD open. You'll want to have Illustrator open just for reference. And then you'll want to have your working folder here just in case we need to drag anything into our layouts. Okay, so to start off, let's come over to XD. What you'll probably see is something like this. You need to go and say new file. You just need to open up a new file. It doesn't matter what size for right now. So it's going to create, for me, it creates this 1920 by probably 1080, something like that. I don't want that artboard. I'm going to click on it and hit delete and it goes away. So instead, I'm going to say file, import, and I'm going to select my Illustrator layout that we have open also in Illustrator and import it. So if everything is set up properly in whatever Illustrator file you're working from, in my case, it's from my exercise 4 file, then when it imports it over, it'll look pretty much the same, and in my case, exactly the same as what it does in Illustrator. And also XD automatically generates artboards that match up to the artboards that you have in Illustrator. So I want to note a few things about what I have going on in the Illustrator file that makes it come over here as smoothly as possible. Not as possible, there's some more things I could do, but makes it come over smoothly. So inside of Illustrator, I don't have any extra stuff floating around in between my artboards, and I don't have any layers that are hidden which have items in them that might pop up when I import. And then the other thing is that whatever I want to have treated like a group when it imports into XD, I have those things actually grouped. So all my header items are grouped together, footer items are grouped together, my hero graphic is all grouped together, as are my little blurb boxes. So doing stuff like that will make it so that it's just a smoother process moving into XD. Now, if you don't do everything perfectly and you import it in, you can still move stuff around and group stuff together inside of XD. It's just if you're used to working in Illustrator, it's much quicker to do that stuff there in Illustrator. So let's pop back over to our XD file. And if you click on any of your artboards, you'll see that when XD imports your Illustrator file, it automatically adds a group around each artboard. So I'm just going to select each one and do Command-Shift-G. You can do Object Ungroup, however you want to do it. But I want to ungroup each one of these artboards. And once you do that, for the most part, everything is going to be grouped together and arranged together very similarly to how it is in your Illustrator file. So now my header is all grouped together, my footer is all grouped together. Now sometimes there's still some groups in there that you didn't have in Illustrator that XD will add. If you find that to be the case, like I have going on here, I'm just going to select that and do Command-Shift-G again, and then I now have my hero graphic all grouped together, and then I have my little blurbs all grouped together. So let me go ahead and save this, and you want to do file save as local document if you're anything like me. it gets confusing really fast for me if I start saving stuff on the cloud. So I'm just going to save this as exercise 4 in my folder where I'm getting everything else. You can save it however you want. I know most of you will not be people in my class for whom this is exercise 4, but I'll go ahead and save this XD file. And if we look at our folder, there's our XD file. Okay, so let's go ahead and rename these artboards. Very simple to do. Just click on the name of it or double click on it, and I'm going to name this home. I'm going to name this one here my gallery, and I'm going to name this artboard here single. So I want to make it so that I have one header, like one master header that's appearing in all of my different artboards, all of my different layouts, so that if I want to change it, I can just change it one time and it happens throughout my layout. So to make that happen, I'm going to click on my layers icon down here so I can see all the different layers. And by the way, just a little aside here, if I labeled my layers in Illustrator just more specifically, I'm pretty sure that those will be brought over here as well. So that's one way that you can improve even from the flow that I've got going on here, is just naming things so that they're easy to find. But it's not going to be that much of a problem, at least in our case. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click, with that group selected, we're going to right click on it and say make component, or you command click if you don't have a right click. And you're going to name that component header. And then we're going to do the same thing with our footer. Select it, right click it, say make component, and then name that component to footer. And I'm going to go ahead and move these, at least my header, all the way to the top, so it eliminates some confusion later on. For example, I'm going to have some things drop down and fall outside of the header. I want those to sit on top of everything. So let's make sure our header is sitting at the top. All right, so now I'm going to grab each one of these other headers here and delete them, and I'm going to make a copy, alt click and drag while holding shift, and move our component version of our header into our other two artboards. So now, even though we're seeing it 3 different times, these are just instances of the same master header. So I can click into one of them, and let me move my workspace so you can actually see everything. So I clicked into my header, so I'm getting the green rectangle that's part of it. So if I change the color of that, you can see that it changes throughout my artboards that have that header component on them. So I'm going to go now to my footer and do the same thing. I'm going to click into it so that I'm actually selecting the yellow box back there, and I'm going to change that. I'm sorry, I'm not going to change that. I'm going to delete my other footers. Make sure that I'm selecting my footer component. I'm going to copy that into my other artboards. And again, now if I'm sure there's a more efficient way to do this, but now if I change anything in my footer, it will happen to all of them. So it's kind of like if you're working in PHP and you have an include that just says grab this file and put it inside of this file. It's something like that. Or another analogy might be something like using CSS when you're working in HTML. Okay, so let's create some character styles and save some global colors. We'll do that real quickly, and then we'll go into the main thing that you want to be able to do with these different artboards, which is to click items on your artboards and go to the other ones. To basically create something like a hyperlink. So before we do that, like I said, we're going to click on our libraries here, and I'm just going to find some text that I want to create character styles from. So like if you're working in Microsoft Word and then you create a style with something selected, it's going to base the style off of what you have selected. Or similar in Illustrator, if you create a character style, it'll base it off what you have currently selected. I'm going to look for a style that I would like to be able to create something that's reusable from. So these guys right here look like they would be probably an H2. So I'm going to click on one of them, and then again with my library icon selected, I'm going to click the plus next to character styles, and it will automatically create a style based off of what I have selected. It'll name it according to the font and the size and that stuff. I just want to name it based off of what it means to me, which is that it is my heading 2. I'll go ahead and create one based off of these words up in the hero. They're probably not going to be reused because this is really mainly a hero graphic that happens on the home page, but I'll go ahead and do it anyway. So I'm going to double click to get into that group. Click on one of the words here and then add a character style from that. You'll see it creates it with the name ambiguity because that's the name of the font. I'm going to change it to hero heading. And then I'm going to do the same thing for this right here. Looks like it would be a good candidate for my main body copy throughout my website. So I'm going to select it, hit character styles, add, and then say body copy. And then I'll choose one more to do that with. I'm going to choose this script right here. And so I'm going to create one from that and name it just script. I'm not going to go through all of my layouts right now and assign these character styles to all of them, even though they all are basically sharing those styles, but just so you can see how you would do that and why you would do that. If at some point I wanted this text right here to take on the style of my body copy, which I don't because it's going to become hard to see, but if I did want that to happen, I would just select it and click on body copy, and then it takes on the styles that were created from this little chunk of text. So if I move this, you can see what that looks like. It's not a good choice for this text here, but you can do it. Let me go ahead and do one more. I'll add the script style to it. You can see it. It's obviously not a good choice, but it does make it easy to select any text anywhere and automatically grab the styles that I've saved. Okay, and then I'm going to do that same thing, but for my colors. So I'm just going to do that with my green, my blue, my brown, and my yellow color here. Similar process. I'm going to double click into my header so I can actually select this rectangle here. You can see that it's selected. So I'm going to click my add button. It'll automatically add the hex value as the name. Most people working in XD don't really know what to do with, or not really dealing with hex values very often, or don't really need them. So I'm just going to name this something that makes more sense for me. And I'm going to name it something slightly more specific than like green, just so it's more obvious to me that those are colors that I've created and not default colors. I'm going to double click into my hero graphic here and select that blue box. And I'm going to add a color called dark navy from that. I'm going to click my ripped brown box here. It's not grouped, so I'll just have to click it once. I'm going to add a dark brown from that. And I'm going to click on or double click into my footer, grab that yellow box, and I'm going to call that mustard. So if I decide later on that I want to change what any of those colors are, I want to change my whole color theme in general, then if I click on one of these, or I'm sorry, right click or command click on one of these, hit edit, and I can move that color, and it will affect everything that has that color applied to it. So the next thing I'm going to get into is adding some linkage between artboards, because like I said, that's the main thing that we're looking for from XD. So before I do that, I'm going to make a copy of this artboard. It's a good thing to know how to do anyway. I'm just going to hold Alt, click and drag, and hold Shift so it stays aligned, and then just move a copy of this single over here. You'll see why later on if you watch the interactive version of the shirt tutorial. For right now, I'm just going to label this, what am I going to call it? Let's call it customize. Yeah, that makes sense. And then I'm going to change the title on this one to say customize, just so I know when I'm on this page, because it looks very similar to the other t-shirt pages. Okay, so now I'm just going to add a few links, because that's, again, that's the main thing that we want to be able to do in XD that makes it actually useful beyond, creating static layouts in Illustrator. So to do that, to create those links, we need to be in our prototype mode. So design is where you do all of your, your normal layout and arranging, and prototype is where you actually create that interaction between elements and between artboards. So I'm going to click on prototype. And then I'm going to come into my layout. I want to add some links in my header. There's not a lot that I can add to them right now because I don't have a hats page or a prints page. But there's a couple. I can add a shirts link and a shirt and a customize link inside of there. So I'm going to double click into my header so I can select items inside of there. I'm going to click on shirt. And then I'm going to just click this blue arrow and drag it to the artboard that I want to link it to. In this case, I want to link it to the gallery page, which has like the thumbnails of my shirts. And then for my customize link, I'm going to double click into here again. I actually want the whole button to link, not just this text. So before I add the interaction, I'm going to select the rectangle and the text and do Command G and group them. And then I'm going to drag a link from that over to my customize artboard. If you need to zoom out, go ahead and do that. But I'm going to drag a link to my customize artboard from my customize link. And is there anything else I can add? I'm going to try and add a link that goes back to home. So again, I'm going to select both of the items that look like they're part of the logo, and I'm going to group them together because I want all of this to link to home. I can't link to the artboard that I'm currently on from inside that artboard. So I'm gonna come over here to the header on this artboard and select that logo and then drag it back to home. And then I'm gonna click on this artboard. Sometimes it's a little bit of a trial and error. I know there's an exact sort of there's an exact sort of logic to how links get added and the scope of those links. But generally, if you have a component that's in multiple artboards, when you drag links from inside that component, it'll duplicate that link wherever it can. So like for example, if I create a link to my shirts page from this artboard inside of my header, well, that's still going to work from my singles page because that can still link back. You can't link to a page from itself. But sometimes it's just a little bit of troubleshooting and trial and error, seeing, if you need to go into each page and relink items. But for the most part, we're not having to do that. It does look like I do need to add this link again for my logo. So I'm going to save that. While you're in prototype view, by the way, if you select an artboard, look at the top left corner, there's a little home icon. If you click on that and it turns blue, that'll make it so that when you do a preview, that is the first artboard that comes up. So at this point, we should at least be able to click back and forth between pages a little bit. So I'm going to save this and hit my preview button up here. So we've added a link to shirts. So if we click on that, we are taken to our shirts artboard. I'm going to click on my logo here, which we added we dragged a link back to our home artboard, so it should take us back home, and it does. I do still want a way to get to our single view, so let's go back into our XD file. I'm going to click on this item here, which corresponds to the shirt that's shown large on our single view, and I'm just going to drag to that artboard. I don't want to drag to anything specific. I just want to drag onto this artboard. And now if I preview that again, I go to my shirts page. These aren't linked, but we just added one here. So if we click on that, that will take us to our single view page. So now we want to create, I want to go ahead and create single view pages for each one of these shirts here. It's very repetitive doing this, but I want to go ahead and do it real quick. So, and actually, let me make sure, okay. I wanted to make sure I linked this to our single view and not our customize, because that's a completely separate thing. So what I want to do is, before I start making a single pages for each one of my shirts, I want to move this down below. I want to move this artboard down below because I want to make 5 more copies that look exactly like this page, except for they have a different shirt in them and a different name. I want to group those together just for my own sanity. So I just moved that single artboard down, and then from that artboard, I'm going to make several other copies of it before I make a copy of it, instead of calling this single, I'm going to call this vocation. I'm going to base the names of these single view artboards. I'm going to base it off of the shirt that it's there for. So then once I've done that, I'm going to alt click and drag that to make a new one. And I'm going to label that based off of the other shirts in my, on my gallery view. So I have the Mason shirt. So here I'm going to, before I do these things, there's a reason why I have this, the graphics separated from the t-shirt. And that's for a customizable t-shirt later on, but we don't need the graphic and the t-shirt to be separate. So before we move forward, let's get rid of this little graphic off of here. We're going to have the t-shirt graphics that I'm using already have the graphics on the PNG file. So let's get rid of those, and then we'll continue forward. I'm going to label this artboard Mason, and I'm going to change the name here to Mason, because that corresponds to the T. And then again, before we move forward too much, I want to make sure that these T's actually correspond to the name of the artboard and the name of our title here. So if I command click on this I have to be in my design mode. Sorry, let me make sure I'm looking at the correct thing. I'm sorry, if I right click or command click on this image, I have this option to just replace image, and that's going to be really useful for us in changing out our images, but also keeping them in the exact same location. So if I'm gonna click replace image, and I'm going to change this to my vocation T. So it makes stuff a lot easier if you label all of your images and items according to what they are and where they're supposed to go. So I actually did do that before doing this tutorial. So I'm going to click on my T vocation and say import, and it's just going to replace it with that T. So yeah, as you can see, this is just part of that PNG image. It's not some vector graphics sitting on top of it. All right, so for my Mason T here, I'm going to right click it and say, oops, not that. I don't want to edit in Photoshop. I'm going to right click it and say replace image. And I'm going to go down to my Mason T and select it, and it automatically replaces it. And since all my images are the exact same as each other, they just have a different color and a different little graphic sitting on them. They're exactly the same size, so it just drops it right in. So then I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this 4 more times, because I have 6 t-shirts in here. So I'm going to make 4 copies of this, and then I'll come back in and make them specific to each of my t-shirts. And you can arrange this however you want, whatever makes it easier for you. To me, it just made more sense to have these guys all in a row if they're similar parallel content. So I have my plectrum T, so I'm going to name this artboard plectrum, and I'm just going to be doing the exact same thing for these next few artboards, so you can skip ahead if you'd like. So plectrum, and then I will right click on the image here and replace it with my plectrum T. Keep forgetting which is next. Mechanic. And replace image. By the way, before I finish the rest of these last couple out, if you're actually wanting to make this a really accurate prototype, you would not be showing this image down here again. This is more like recommended search based off what you're looking at. You wouldn't want to show the same image as what is being featured large. So if you want to fix that, just go into you have to hit command click to click into that group, and then you can do the same thing we've been doing. Right click. Command click to get into that group, and then right click on the image that's inside of this little clipping mask, replace the image, and then just choose one of the shirts that's not actually being shown already. So I'm going to choose the Fox shirt. So now we don't have that duplication. In any case, you don't need to do all that for this this demo. So our next T is going to be our carpenter, fox, and then vocation. And I think we already have the vocation, so we just have the carpenter and the fox left. Okay, and double checking that I have my artboards labeled. And so now I'm just going to add the rest of the links on my shirts thumbnail gallery to the single views of those. So click back on prototype. I think I may have lost one of my links, maybe not. So I'm going to drag this one to its appropriate artboard. It's pretty obvious where they need to go at this point. You'll start to get a little bit of a spaghetti junction going on here. Should show you why you don't want to get too crazy with the depth of your prototypes. You know, you really just want to give just a general feel to the viewer, you know, how it's going to flow. You don't need to show every single possibility that they might see. But that's a pretty good sampling of how the site's going to work and what's going to link to what. So let's go back and preview what we've got so far. And that should be it for this tutorial. So I'm going to preview that. Okay, I'm going to click on shirts. This takes us to our overview, and now each one of these has a link to their single view. And since they're sharing the same header, I can click on shirts and it'll take us back to that overview, and should work for each one of them. Now, if we wanted to finish this thing out, we could go and add a few more links. Like I can click on this customize box here, and I could drag it to our customize board, which we haven't actually done anything with. Again, that's for the next lesson. We could look for anything else that might need to link, like our footer navigation, and you would just do the exact same thing that we've been doing. You would just go into your footer, grab it, and drag links to where it's supposed to go. But I think that probably gets the point across. The basics, just importing your file over, make sure things are organized well, turn reused elements into components, you know, save your colors and your fonts that you're going to be reusing into your as components, character styles, all inside of your libraries panel, and then go into your prototype mode and just drag all your interaction out that you want. So let's do one more preview of that, and I think that will be it for this particular preview.